Hi, I'm Yentyl Williams, the founder and president of the ACP Young Professionals Network, and this week we've been in the European Parliament as part of the S&D Africa week, co-hosting the youth workshop. In the youth workshop we covered several themes from demographic boom, including sexual health and reproductive health rights, migration, youth employment and entrepreneurship, and last but not least, political engagement. And here with me I have one of our experts, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi everyone, my name is Tarila Marclint Ebiede. I'm an expert on migration at the African, Caribbean Pacific Young Professionals Network. I'm also a PhD research fellow at the University of Leuven, focusing on peace and security. And we've been spending the whole week talking about migration, conflict, peace and security, youth unemployment, demographic boom at the S&D Africa week here at the European Parliament. And we will continue the conversation to brief you about how we've been having these conversations over the week.
Basically, during the 2.5 days of the youth workshop, we had 25 young people from both Europe and Africa, from different African countries, coming to the European Parliament to engage in a very comprehensive workshop which covered several issues. It was a really nice context because for every workshop we had the honour to have an MEP moderate the session alongside an expert from the ACP YPN network. I think at this point it's very interesting to know what were the precise recommendations, and Tari, as the expert on migration, can tell you some of his recommendations.
On migration, we noted that migration is an historical fact which has occurred over the years, and there are several push and pull factors. But to cut straight to the chase, we basically focused on European policies towards migration, and we called on European partners and European institutions to deal with migration as a human rights issue. We called on European institutions to support African states and institutions on managing migrants within the African continent. We also called on European institutions to focus on developing a common framework for managing migration in Europe that specifically emphasizes on human rights and respect for dignity of migrants.
I was the co-host of session 4, which was on youth employment and entrepreneurship, and there we spoke about the challenges of youth unemployment in both EU and African contexts. So in the EU, the current rate of youth unemployment is 19%, which is more than double that of the average adult unemployment in the EU. Moreover, there's huge disparities from one EU member state to another. For example, youth unemployment in Greece is as low as 7%, where it's as high as 47% in Spain. What's also interesting is whilst Europe is seeing a demographic decline and Africa is seeing a demographic boom, both continents face an issue of youth unemployment. According to World Bank statistics, up to 70% of the African population is a youth population, but half of that population is either inactive or unemployed. So entrepreneurship and new forms of education, including more technical and vocational education, can be solutions to the unemployment challenges we face in both contexts.
In addition to that, we also discussed about more intra and intercontinental exchange between Europe and Africa, cultural exchanges between European artists and African artists, and we also made recommendations about supporting more easy access to visas for African expats and African professionals. And we also called that as Europe deals with the migration crisis, that it should also provide legal pathways for migration for those who are qualified to come to Europe and those Europeans who seek to go to Africa to contribute to the development of both continents. Thank you.
But I don't think we should tell you too much because the declaration will be public soon. So you can have a look at the full declaration, which lays out about 25 points that us as the young people from the Europe and African context, having come together in the S&D Africa week, will present to the EU and African Union Heads of State Summit.
And more importantly, we had a great week.
It was fantastic.
Yeah.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.